Mr. Ade was thrilled about the festive season. "We are going to the village this year," he told his wife Yemi. "It's been years and the children should see where we come from." Yemi wasn't so sure. "I don't feel good about this," she said. "Some of your family members don't seem happy for us." Mr. Ade dismissed her worries with a laugh. "It's family, Yemi, what could go wrong?" Their two children, Bayo and Tolu, were overjoyed. "I want to see Grandma," Bayo shouted. "I want to climb the trees and play with the goats," Tolu added. Yemi smiled at their excitement but still felt uneasy. She packed their bags carefully, adding colorful gifts for the relatives. Mr. Ade made sure the car was in perfect condition for the long journey. The family left early in the morning. The road trip was filled with laughter as the children pointed at the rivers, tree, and animals they passed. By the time they arrived at the village, it was late. It was late afternoon, and Grandma was waiting outside the family house. "Welcome home," she said, hugging them tightly. Relatives soon gathered to greet them, clapping and cheering. Uncle Kola and Uncle Sola, Mr. Ade brothers, were there too with their wives, Auntie Bose and Auntie Fumi. The women smiled, but Yemi felt their smile was forced. The first few days went smoothly. The children explored the compound, climbed trees, and played with their cousins. Yemi helped Grandma in the kitchen, and Mr. Ade spent time catching up with his brothers. However, Yemi began to notice strange things. Auntie Bose and Auntie Fumi often whispered to each other while casting cold glances at her and the children. One evening during dinner, Grandma praised Mr. Ade and his family. "You have done so well," she said. "Your wife is kind, and your children are such a blessing." Everyone nodded except for Bose and Fumi, whose faces hardened. Yemi noticed but stayed quiet. Things started to go wrong a few days later. One morning, Yemi was preparing food in the kitchen when Uncle Kola walked in. "You are a hard-working woman," he said, leaning against the door. Yemi nodded politely, trying to focus on her work, but Kola didn't leave. "Ade is lucky to have you," he said, his tone changing. "A beautiful woman who gives him children. Some of us aren't so lucky." Yemi felt uncomfortable and quickly left the kitchen. Later that day, Kola tried to approach Yemi again, this time when she was alone outside. He complimented her and leaned in too close, making her feel uneasy. "You should stop this," Yemi said firmly. Kola smirked and walked away. That night during dinner, Kola accused Yemi of trying to seduce him. "Your wife is not as innocent as she looks," he told Mr. Ade in front of everyone. "She's been acting inappropriately towards me." Yemi was shocked. "That's a lie," she shouted. "You are the one who's been following me around." Mr. Ade stood up angrily. "How dare you accuse my wife?" he said to Kola. Kola's wife, Bose, jumped in. "Why wouldn't she try to seduce him? She thinks she's better than us because she has children," Bose shouted. The room erupted into chaos. Shola and Fumi sided with Kola and Bose, blaming Yemi for causing trouble in the family. Grandma tried to calm everyone down, but the argument got worse. "You have always been jealous of me," Mr. Ade shouted at his brothers. "You can't stand that I am happy." Kola lunged at Mr. Ade, and the two started fighting. Relatives had to pull them apart. The tension in the house grew worse. Yemi was afraid to leave the children alone that night. She heard whispers outside the children's room. When she checked, she saw a shadow moving by the window. She woke Mr. Ade, who ran outside with a torch, but the figure disappeared into darkness. The next morning, Baya and Tolu went missing. Play but didn't return. Yemi and Mr. Ade searched everywhere, calling their names. Hours later, a villager brought them back, saying he found them near the river. They said someone told them to follow the man. The man explained. Yemi hugged her children tightly, crying with relief. Grandma put Mr. Ade aside. "Your brother's wives are jealous of Yemi," she said. "Their envy has turned into hatred. You need to leave before things get worse." That night, Yemi felt very ill. She was weak and couldn't get out of bed. The village herbalist came and prayed over her. "This is not an ordinary sickness," he said. "There's evil in this house." Mr. Ade decided that They had to leave immediately. Early the next morning, they packed their bags. Grandma blessed them and told them to stay safe. As they were loading the car, Bosse and Fumi appeared. Running away won't save you, Bosse said coldly. Mr. Ade ignored them and drove off quietly. On the way back to the city, the family car broke down in the middle of the road. It was dark and they were terrified. Suddenly, a man appeared and offered to help. Be careful, he said after fixing the car. Not everyone who smiles at you means well. When they finally got home, they knelt down and prayed, thanking God for keeping them safe. Mr. Ade hugged Yemi and the children tightly. We will never go back there again, he said. Not everyone is happy when you are happy. From that day on, the family learned to be cautious. Even with relatives, they had seen how jealousy could turn love into hatred and how dangerous envy could be. It was a lesson they would never forget. This brings us to the end of my story. Please stay tuned, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for more interesting and amazing story I'll be bringing your way.